Over the past 3 years, we've observed a disturbing trend with this administration and ever-growing dependence on extremist organizations to shape the policy decisions. The Biden administration appears to be governed by a fear of upsetting its most progressive faction. The policies enacted by this administration show the significant influence of these extremist groups. This undue influence leads the administration to prioritize appeasing these destructive groups, especially considering the coming elections. One area where this external pressure is directly felt is in our energy and public land sectors. We've recently witnessed an attempt by the administration to pursue the demands of these groups by advocating for the commoditization of our public land and resources, disregarding the needs of local communities and businesses reliant on these lands for their livelihoods and in violation of the current statute. While this scheme was thwarted, the residual effects linger, exemplified by the recently implemented Conservation and Landscape Health Rule, which flagrantly violates the Taylor Grazing Act and the attempts to breach the lower Snake River dams. Mr. O'Neill, I really appreciate your comments and your insight as to what's been taking place. It's widely acknowledged that the U.S. produces some of the cleanest oil and gas globally, using the most environmentally sound practices. Despite this, Secretary Haaland and the current administration persist in bragging about the reduction in lease sales. Given this administration's purported focus on climate issues, how do you explain their desire to increase our dependence on comparatively dirtier foreign sources of oil and gas, which is produced with little or no care for the environment?
Yeah, I think it is directly contrary. The more that we outsource the drilling of oil and gas, the worse it is for the global environment. Those who really care about climate change on a global level should be concerned about this.
Mr. Walter, when we talk about the far-left environmental activism, there are two individual names that frequently come up: George Soros and Hans-Jörg Wyss. Mr. Walter, can you talk about these two men and why they have taken an interest in the policy area?
Mr. Wyss probably deserves more attention because he's far less well known. He has given roughly $500 million as a foreign national to American nonprofits that engage in politics and public policy debate, including C4s that give money to super PACs, which he, of course, is not allowed to do. If you go to the FEC database, you can also see that he made direct political contributions to multiple members of the Democratic Party in Congress. Unfortunately, that wasn't discovered until the statute of limitations had expired. So he continues to give hundreds of millions of dollars to the Arabella Network. In fact, he was probably the original sugar daddy when the Arabella Network was just getting started in the 2000s. He's also been the source of he's had an FEC complaint lodged against him and his Arabella compatriots. The FEC, unfortunately, did nothing about it, as it usually does, but the general counsel at the FEC urged that both Arabella and he be sanctioned.
So, Mr. Walter, do you have any insights on their end goals when influencing public policy, but most specifically in the natural resource space?
Arabella has said that roughly 1/3 of its work in its network is in the environmental space, and Mr. Wyss especially has done that. As I said, he's on the board, as is his Dark Money Group's president of the Wilderness Society.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would yield back the balance of my time and wait for the second round.
I think the gentleman